All right, everyone. Now we've got to talk about Ron DeSantis again versus Trump, because everything politics right now is effectively framed in the context of Trump's existence anyway. Like, oh, this person did bad, but here are the top 5 examples of how Trump did worse. It's stuff like that. It's used as a cop-out. It's used for comparative purposes on campaign platforms. Everything is compared to the Big Don. Mike Pence, praises the administration that he was part of rather than saying, the Trump administration that I was VP in for a reason. Conspicuously absent, mention of Trump. What does this mention accidentally? Trump, 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 and his avoidance thereof. With Ron DeSantis, he was very viable for quite some time. It was still a long shot because Trump, even very early on, the second after he announced, he was at 45 points. You're getting up towards the point at which if you had more than maybe two other people in the field, it's probably not possible for them to cobble together a coalition responsible for them winning. You go into the first few states, if you look at polling right now, and yes, I know that it's a long way out from the general. The caution here is that things can change. Trump could stroke out tomorrow, so could DeSantis. I mean, he'd get run over by a plane tomorrow on the tarmac. Chris Christie could, pop an artery, and at his weight, you never know. Not that that would really impact the race, other than Chris Christie wouldn't be constantly stating on Twitter, please donate to me so I can get on a debate stage. I don't have 40,000 unique donors yet. I'm only at 15K. I don't even know what Chris Christie's doing. I'll probably be covering his latest belugal rant, actually, today in a New Tech exclusive. But Ron DeSantis then hit several problems. And this is why I no longer conceive of him as being likely viable at all. He has shrunk in his polling by about 10 points. Now, not all of that has gone to Trump. Trump absorbed much of it, but some of it appears to have confusingly gone to Mike Pence. He's the only one so far other than Ramaswamy who got a bounce from his announcement. Trump didn't get a bounce because he was already riding high. He was the heir apparent to his own former campaign. He's the technical incumbent, so a bounce wasn't really something that you would expect. Christie hasn't. If any, Nikki Haley, if anything, is receded, and now DeSantis is receding. His campaign announcement was marred, and that was mistake number one. Well, we're not going in chronological order, just order of whatever. His campaign launch was novel. Actually, I praised him, you'll remember at the time, for the idea of, hey, I'm going to be the first person to announce a presidential bid, a mainline one. I'm in the double-digit range. I'm a viable guy. I've got the fundraising apparatus and everything to announce on a Twitter Spaces. And, of course, Twitter's big in the news, and Elon's fairly influential, I would say, within sociopolitics. So I'll announce there. The problem is that then it was a glitch fest and a mumble fest. It was not particularly well crafted. It was low energy. It was meandering. Another problem was with the Trump indictment. Now, I think that it's good if candidates insult one another, point out their differences, criticize one another's record or in some cases lack thereof. That's all perfectly fine and fair. But you've got to choose the right moment for different forms of criticism now, don't you? When Ron DeSantis therefore came out belatedly, days later after Trump is indicted, say, well, yes, the machinations of government are out of control, but, and then proceed to insult him, that was the exact moment at which he suddenly dropped. I think that was more the reason he lost support than that Trump got indicted and people just whirlwinded back into supporting him because they want to throw an atomic bomb into the machine. I think that it's actually more about the fact that they felt that that was stupid. I think that Ron DeSantis, he's the agent of his own misfortune. Look at HB 269. This probably didn't affect most voters as much as it did me, but I find the First Amendment important. I consider that a mistake. He's made several additional mistakes since then. As a result, he's lost roughly 1/3 of the soft support that he had. Some of that, again, has gone to Trump, although part of that's indictment related. Again, it's people who want to crush the system. They immediately got back on board with Trump when that happened because they're like, oh, I noticed that DeSantis doesn't have an indictment to his name. If he got indicted for something, they'd probably be more likely to support him. That's the irony right now. And the other thing that DeSantis and a perilously large number of other people are not understanding, when they use terms like chaos candidate, they say, well, Trump's crazy, you're crazy to run him because, he can't win, etc. The machine will chew him up and spit him out. What I point out is two things. First, if you think that DeSantis genuinely is ideologically similar and simply a younger, more refined Trump, don't you think that the same system would rob him of the election? If shenanigans are possible, why wouldn't they use it against any contender that was actually outside of the neocon, neolib incorporated sort of thing? So if DeSantis won, would you even trust him? No, you'd say, well, I mean, some people would get cognitive dissonance, but you'd have to admit, hey, he was able to win an election that was supposedly rigged or tampered with in some way. What does that say about him? Clearly they didn't feel too threatened by him, now did they? They might topically try to stop him as an afterthought. With Trump, we already know, we've already seen it. They are afraid of him. So that would be point number one. And point number two, with Donald Trump, it's a symbol of flipping the bird to the establishment when you look at the 2016 election. Well, don't nominate this guy. He's a pig. He's a racist. He's a sexist. He's a homophobe. He's everything terrible on its own. He's basically the reincarnation, the dumber reincarnation of Adolf. That was what we were told during the 2016 election, and people flipped the system the bird, partially because they were dissatisfied with the Dem nominee, Hillary Clinton. It does not have a great amount of likability, and they elected Donald Trump. In this election, it's more about not flipping the bird to the establishment, but deliberately trying to fuck with it. Not just saying, hey, screw off, but hey, now that you've refused to screw off, we're going to tamper with you. We're going to force you to either act out in the most outrageous manner in order to stop him, because look at who your nominee is likely to be. An old, meandering dude who refuses to campaign, reigning over a lackluster economy with a number of national security and moral failings to his name. And if you attempt to deny the person who likely wins that matchup, which is Trump, again, last time around he was never ahead in any polls. He's been fairly consistent in holding a lead against Biden at this point. The economy is likely to suffer further. If under those circumstances Trump did not win and there's any inkling of unfairness, effectively you're forcing the system to try to use a legal methodology to disqualify Trump or at least take him off the campaign trail as a setup for the plausibility of him actually being capable of losing. Well, that's a way to screw with the establishment. You're forcing them to show their ass. And that's what I think DeSantis fans don't really understand. This isn't about, well, we need somebody viable to carry forth a specific ideology. That's fine. I like to hear about Trump's campaign platform, about the different planks comprising it, and I expect him to have one. And by and large, he's hitting most of the marks already. I await further, elaboration on some of those things. It can't all be about, hey, 2020 and indictment gate. It can't be just about those. He has to flesh out more of a platform as well. Again, for the most part, he's making progress. He could move a little bit quicker, but I'm satisfied enough. It's fine. Essentially, it's about screwing the system. It's more about that, I think, than any sub-ideological principle, because I think people are beginning to realize. Let's say you care about the border. Well, you're not going to get border security unless you have a populist government. There's no possibility of it. Let's say you care about defending the Second Amendment. Well, look at what the Uniparty Republicans have been doing lately. They've abandoned rank on the issue completely. Trump, by and large, did not. He stood for the Second Amendment. I'm not happy about the bump stock ban that fell through, thankfully, in the end, but he's not exactly an he's not Mitt Romney on the issue. He actually has some principles. If you want tax reform because the economy sucks and people could really use it, Trump already gave it to you. I still see people with their head up their ass pretending that there wasn't tax relief broadly for the middle class under Trump. This has even been reiterated by some Republicans as a method to target him. It's completely disingenuous. Ron DeSantis does not reflect MAGA, or even at this point I would argue elements of populism. There's certainly some good things to say about him. Originally, before all of this happened, months ago, what did I say? I said I wanted Trump to be reelected. Rand Paul is his running mate. Rand runs twice with DeSantis as VP, then DeSantis runs, and you'd have a 5-term dynastic presidency of populism, because I thought that DeSantis was going to maintain that genuinely populistic line. He has broken away from that somewhat. I have problems with his personal campaign. And then also, remember that he slumped 10 points against a backdrop of being the one that's favored by the donor class. The donor class within the GOP has dried up anyway. A lot of them now only fund Democrats. They've got very principled conservative values, you'd see. If it were a uniparty, as if it were Jeb Bush and looked viable, they'd throw money their way. With Ron DeSantis, he gets a shit ton of money, but it doesn't appear to have made any impact. So it's not clear where we go from here. Again, we've still got a very long time before the primaries are over and the general begins. But for the most part, I think that the writing at this point is on the wall. Ron DeSantis is Slump and Trump is Donald Trump. That's about all. Peace out.